Question. Have you ever decided to play a game and you had this insane sensation of deja vu so badly that you knew something was wrong, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? This is exactly what I felt with Ninja Gaiden 4. I know it literally came out yesterday as of recording this, and I had no early access to the game, so the fact that this sort of review is out so soon is probably insane to some people, and believe me too. I'm literally running on coffee and adrenaline at this point. As of writing this, the achievement that I have for the game's completion is at 0.13% attained as an Xbox achievement, and 1.9% on Steam. Genuinely, I couldn't put it down. There was something so enticing from start to finish, and then a weird feeling washed over me, so I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to do a bit of a review, and then I'm going to go into what my issues were. So the Ninja Gaiden series up to this point followed Ryu Hayabusa, a Dragon Clan ninja who managed to stop evil no matter where it would be found. He fought so many evil ninjas and demons in his time that you would almost just call him a hunter. A demon hunter, some would say. Don't worry too much about that, that's a little bit of foreshadowing, but I'll explain more soon, I promise. And at the end of Ninja Gaiden 3, he seals away the Dark Dragon, but does not kill him, as he can't. Throughout the process of his games, he grows from essentially a young, inexperienced ninja into a much wiser master of his craft, one that knows when and how to get stuff done. It was felt by many that Ninja Gaiden 3 was a perfect send-off for this character, and that should there be a sequel, it would likely need to follow a new, younger character with a new story to tell. Ninja Gaiden 4 is this long-awaited sequel for the Ninja Gaiden franchise, and when I heard that it was being released, I was ecstatic.
I did my waiting!
13.
Years of it!
A game created by Japanese companies Team Ninja, who created Dead or Alive, Hyrule Warriors, Neo, I think that's how that's pronounced, I'm not 100% sure, Rise of the Ronin, and all of the Ninja Gaiden games up to this point, and Platinum Games, who are responsible for games like Bayonetta and Nier Automata alongside Square Enix. Ninja Gaiden 4 follows a new, young protagonist named Yakumo, truly a young upstart with a bit of an ego complex, sent to kill the Dark Dragon Priestess. He finds said priestess, and she says, "Oh no, killing me is a bad idea. You'll never destroy the Dark Dragon if you kill me. You may need my help." Despite the many red flags, like the cliche of somebody stabbing you in the back, especially one with as cute a demeanor as this person, he takes her hand and takes the chance and releases her and escapes from the DDO, or the Divine Dragon Order. Oh, her name is Sayori, by the way. Yakumo progresses through the game, taking orders to break the seals that hold the Dark Dragon in place, which are all protected by different big boy or girl in one singular case, demon. Actually, this one could be a girl, I don't know. I don't really know how to tell a female from a male shark, especially not one with hands. But destroying these demons allows the protagonist to break the seal and attain a new weapon. One that is ancient and that works with their already established skill set. New weapons are not a new mechanic to this franchise at all, so this was welcomed for sure. But it was the first time, if I remember rightly, that the weapons came directly from killing a boss. I'm pretty sure all the weapons are found throughout the world, but I'm not 100% confident in that, so don't quote me. Spattered throughout the levels are some teasers of Ryu as well. Just some glimpses until he rocks up with the head of the DDO, and I'm just gonna say it, absolutely rocks your shit. Can you beat him here? Honestly, don't know, and he kicked my ass so badly I'm not willing to go back and check. But you were meant to lose, so it's all good. You progress through the game and you get to what genuinely feels like the end. Yakumo is close to fulfilling his part of the prophecy, the priestess needs to be sacrificed because the Dark Dragon's soul lives in her, and you are betrayed. Not by her this time, but another ally who I genuinely cannot remember his name. He was just the nerdy guy in the entourage, but lol jokes, he's actually a demon named Achilles. So you fight and kill him, and Yakumo, who was just a moody teen the whole game and didn't really say much at all, tears up because he's sad to see Sayori die. This was an odd choice to me because, yes, you do grow close to her as a player, but Yakumo hardly says more than 3 or 4 words to her at a time. So to see him tear up was, I don't know, a bit strange. I think this scene could have worked perfectly fine if he'd stayed stoic, and probably would have given him more of a badass look, but hey, that's just my personal opinion. Anyway, we have a fade out, and I'm thinking, awesome, time to kill the Dark Dragon. Nope. Enter Ryu. And, Sayori? What? And you literally go about killing the boss Achilles that you just beat, and the fight is literally the same. No, seriously, you get a few walls of text on how Ryu's powers work, which are marginally different to Yakumo, and Achilles does literally nothing different. Kill Achilles and chat to Sayori, and you realize, oh, hang on, we've gone back in time here, and now you play the next few chapters as Ryu, explaining how all the seals got there in the first place. Now, I'm not going to lie, I panicked a little bit at this point. In order to go back and put the seals in, that means going back through the levels that I'd already just gone through. And I was thinking, no, please don't make me go back through them. And yep, back through them again, in reverse, including Achilles. You kill 4 of the bosses you've already killed as Yakumo. Except every time you beat one this time, Sayori brings them back to life in order to guard the seals. So, you go through Ryu's part of the game, and Sayori gives Ryu a Dark Dragon Stone, something that only a Raven Clan member can use to stop the Dark Dragon, and basically says to Ryu, if you deem him worthy, meaning Yakumo, give him this, because Yakumo is actually a member of the Raven Clan. Well, long story short, here you take control of Yakumo again, and you fight Ryu once again, which this time you're meant to win, and I'm not gonna lie, this fight went so hard, my game crashed. I'm not even kidding, it just crashed outright, which was actually just funny. Beat Ryu, and Ryu gives the stone to Yakumo, and Yakumo then creates the Dark Dragon Blade. This very much mirrors Ryu's story, as in the end of 3, he does the similar thing to power up his Dragon Blade. This is a kind of symbolic passing of the torch to the next generation. You take on the Dark Dragon, which this fight here, literally the easiest fight in the game. I'm not kidding. I found certain mobs harder to kill than this thing. I was expecting more from you, Dark Dragon. Oh, hang on. No. He's got a second form. Yep, no, we're good. And, yeah, you know what? This fight was actually easier than the earlier fight with Ryu. In the process of both the Kaiju Dragon form and this guy, I used 4 healing items, when most other bosses saw me using everything I had. And this includes 5 smaller cells for health, 3 larger ones as well, 3 pots that grant regeneration, and 1 that is an auto-revive if you die. Actually, this item has a really nice mechanic to it as well, that you can use it to heal up to full health at any time, or you can hold onto it and use it as a revive to come back at half health. And you have the choice to use it or not, so if you need to take the L and revert back to your last checkpoint, you can do so. I took this option a few times to make sure that I actually had this item for the bosses. Anyway, Yakumo wins, and that's the story of the game. And I have to admit, I really enjoyed my time playing it. It has some issues when Ryu takes over, however, as honestly going through the levels in reverse and replaying the same bosses with no new mechanics to them is frankly just lazy. It's like the company pays for half of the development time but gets double the game anyway. And the writing was fine, and for some of the other issues, I need to explain some other mechanics of the game. So the game breaks the levels up into chapters, and in those chapters are these sort of safe points. Not to be confused with save points that actually save your progress, but here is where you can talk to your trainer and spend points that you collect from killing enemies on new skills. You can also go over to this little shop and talk to your handler and buy items from her using the same currency that the trainer takes. Now, I found this quite an interesting battle in my own mind, because sometimes I desperately needed healing, because the Ninja Gaiden games aren't exactly known for being forgiving by any means. So it was a battle to decide to either upgrade or ensure my survival, and usually ensuring my survival won out. When Ryu takes over, you instead go to these statues, called Muramasa statues, and you can buy items from him, but the way you get Ryu's skills, you get them from chests. No, I'm not kidding. Random chests just laying around. Open them up and he gets a new skill. Cool. Another point that I like to bring up here, and I get the idea that Ryu is meant to be the stronger, wiser, older ninja, but the challenge completely leaves the game when Ryu is your character. Even his health bar starts insanely large, and this brings me to another point. Throughout the game, as Yakumo, you can increase your character's health by getting 2 different items that you can accumulate either through chests in the world or doing missions given to you from your handler. These missions are usually pretty easy and are something along the lines of kill 50 fiends, which you're just going to do passively anyway. And I think over the course of the game, I ended up finding 4 health expansions, which means finding 4 of each of these items, and then they came together to make the health upgrade. So 8 items in total. And I'm going to be honest, I thought I was doing pretty well in that regard. Now, when I started as Ryu, his health starts almost double that of Yakumo from the start. And throughout his chapters, you pick up a single item and bam, health increase. I got 3 in 3 chapters. I'm not even kidding. This was just a boost that was completely not needed, but I'm also not going to argue about giving me more health. Overall, this game is really good, and it's a fun experience, and based on its own merit, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. As for the most part, I'm pretty hard to impress when it comes to games, and to put this into perspective, God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, hell, even my favorite game, Final Fantasy VIII, get a 9 out of 10 because there are issues, but they are in fact great games. So 7.5 out of 10 is pretty good for my scoring, to be honest. I mean, hell, you know what? 2 of those points are probably for the soundtrack alone. Like, listen to this boss music. And now have a listen to this music for the shop menu when you're playing as Yakumo. Man, I thought GoldenEye pause music went hard. I also need to talk about the combat in this moment as well, because this was legitimately very smooth. There are some really nice quality of life things too, where in combat, the enemies have this little red dot on them if you're not using the proper targeting feature. And this red dot tells you that if you use a ranged weapon, this is the target it's going to be aiming for. And this is a very simple thing, but it actually helped a lot to determine my next moves. I was also really impressed in how it would move between enemies as well. It was never janky and glitching between them, it was solid. Almost like when it changed, the target was programmed to stay there for a minimum 2 or 3 seconds or something, which is really nice. There was no guessing game going on here, and it was much appreciated. When you do use the proper targeting system, again, it's not janky, it's solid. Having said this, I only did use this in the boss fights to maintain my camera and make sure that the boss was in said camera, so I didn't really see what it was like with mass enemies, but it was really helpful when I used it. Also, I have to admit, the game looks really good. I mean, the costumes look pretty damn good, aside from the fact they gave Ryu some really weird butt armor. And if any of the women are on the screen and somebody walks in on you playing this game, you'd probably tab over to porn, because honestly, porn would be easier to explain than this. But there's something to be said that despite the flowing outfits, I don't think I saw a single clipping issue, at least none that were blaringly obvious, and considering I'm playing this day of release, I'm really impressed. So ultimately, on its own merit, the devs did a really great job and made a super fun game with lots of blood and gore. But you're probably thinking, Jim, I'm looking at the video runtime and we're only like half of the way through this video. Surely you've got more to say on this. Well, yeah. So remember how I was talking about deja vu earlier? You know, that sense you've been here before? Well, I realized why that is, and personally, it kind of sullied the experience for me. Devil May Cry follows protagonist Dante, a demon hunter and part demon himself as the son of Sparta, that starts his story as a kid and grows much wiser as the franchise progresses. A jokester at heart that knows when things are supposed to get real. 3 games were made following Dante as the protagonist and covered a great many things. Despite the fact that the games were not in chronological order, there was a lot of growth from the character, and a lot of people felt as though his story was nicely wrapped up, and should they create a sequel, they would need to follow a new character with brand new stories to tell. Devil May Cry 4, released in 2008 on the Xbox 360 and PS3 by Japanese company Capcom, follows Nero, truly a young upstart with a bit of an ego complex and cocky demeanor. He arrives at a ceremony where his girlfriend Kyrie is singing, and the proceedings are being headed by the Order of Swords leader Sanctus. Dante, protagonist for games 1 to 3, bursts through the window, kills Sanctus and some others in the room, and Nero and Dante fight. This establishes very quickly that Dante is an antagonist of this story. Very quickly we learn some basic mechanics of the game, as each of the levels are separated in the way of chapters, or missions more accurately in this game. And you go to this thing here and you can purchase new skills and upgrade for Nero and his weapons. His sword, the Red Queen, and gun, the Blue Rose. And a new mechanic added to the franchise, the Devil Bringer, which is Nero's demon arm, which is used to grapple enemies and to pull the character up to specific points that the game points out. Nero chases Dante after Dante flees, and at the end of some of the chapters, Nero fights with some larger demon big boys and one specifically girl. Oh, this might be a girl too. I don't really know the anatomy of frogs, especially not a frog with hands. These guys are summoned through portals, Nero beats them, and then Nero's story comes to an abrupt end when he is restrained by Sanctus, whose, surprise, isn't actually dead, and Dante tries to save Nero, but is ultimately too late. Sanctus becomes a large godlike demon vessel, and is absorbing the demon power that Nero exudes. From this point on, you play as Dante, who decides to finish what Nero started by going back through the missions Nero literally just did, but in reverse, and kills the demons again in reverse, and nothing new is added either in terms of scenery or boss mechanics. They remain exactly the same. As each demon is felled a second time, Dante gains a new weapon. New weapons are not a new mechanic for this franchise at all, so this was welcomed for sure. But Devil May Cry 3, if I remember correctly, was the first time that weapons came directly from killing bosses, except in Devil May Cry 1, after defeating Phantom, you get the Ifrit gauntlets. Aside from that, I'm pretty sure all the weapons are found throughout the world, but I'm not 100% confident in that, so don't quote me. Dante saves Nero and explains his demon heritage to him. Nero trusts him and goes, "Yeah, you right," and Dante entrusts Yamato, the katana that belonged to his brother Virgil, to Nero as a symbolic passing of the torch to the next generation. Nero destroys the big bad known as the Savior from the inside, including its heart and saving Kyrie in the process, whilst Dante finishes off the remnants of the Savior's body from the outside. Not actually in that order though. The kaiju-style fight happens first, followed by Nero fighting the Sanctum. So, you're probably a little confused as to why I've brought all of this up. Well, in reality, what I'm saying here is that Ninja Gaiden 4 is almost a carbon copy of Devil May Cry 4. Let me lay everything out here. Both games are the fourth of their respective series, and are focusing on a new protagonist. The games have chapter-based level systems, which, realistically, this is fine. The originals of both series come from an era where this was pretty normal, and both use very similar systems when it comes to enhancing your weapons and upgrading your skills. Again, relatively common mechanic for games of the time. Both games have side areas that are kind of tests of skill. Ninja Gaiden has purgatory gates hidden throughout the chapters that you will have to actively search for, where you enter and fight waves of enemies and need to get out alive. You can wager some of your maximum health in order to get more rewards. Devil May Cry 4 have secret levels hidden throughout the levels that you will have to actively search for. Each mission is a different goal to either kill all enemies, perform a certain skill several times, or a range of other things. Now, I promise that is the last similarity that can be attributed to almost any game that came out around the same time as their originals. These next ones are going to be a little bit more egregious. The new characters to each franchise are both young and cocky, and think pretty highly of themselves. Throughout the game, they struggle with identity, where Yakumo struggles with his bloodline being cursed to end the Dark Dragon, and Nero struggles with his bloodline being cursed because he's a demon. Both games introduced new mechanics. Nero's new hand allows him to pull himself up to new areas unreachable otherwise. Yakumo gets basically a hook shot that allows him to pull himself up to new areas unreachable otherwise. Looking at the main organizations for both games, we are provided with the Divine Dragon Order and the Order of Swords. Using the word order in their names can be coincidental, but look at the color scheme of their armor. For the most part, pure white. Both games have their initial protagonists start the game with the full idea that the older character from previous games is their antagonist. Both have combat with their respective combatants. The only difference in Devil May Cry is that you're always expected to win, whereas Ninja Gaiden 4 allowed you to lose in the first one. Both games have these characters fight a total of 2 times, by the way. Both stories are essentially started by a female character, Nero's girlfriend Kyrie and the Dark Dragon priestess Sayori. Nero wouldn't have encountered Dante if not for Kyrie, and Sayori convinces Yakumo to take a different path. A lot of what happens wouldn't have happened if not for these two people. Both protagonist stories come to a super abrupt stop when the older protagonist takes over to continue the story. The difference being that Dante needed to finish what Nero started, and Ryu's was literally just telling us the story of what happened in the past up to that point as a massive expedition dump that realistically no one really needed. It kind of followed the Disney's Beauty and the Beast rule, where everything needed to be explained or corrected when it's a literal fairy tale. Some things do not need to be explained, like the difference between a candle and a candelabra.
Candelabra, please.
No one cares, bad French Ewan McGregor. Sorry. In this game, specifically, nobody was asking how did the seals get there. This whole section was just padding. In both games, just before the older protagonist takes over, there is a huge death in the game that you are meant to really feel. Devil May Cry sees Kyrie's brother, a man whose dedication to his order saw him give up his humanity to become a demon, lose his life trying to save his sister, and Nero. In Ninja Gaiden, we lose Sayori, a woman whose dedication to her order saw her take on part of the soul of the Dark Dragon to become the final piece of the puzzle. Throughout the game, she opens up her heart to you and you learn a lot about her. She literally gets the story started and we see her die. I'm also realizing this part off script, Kyrie's brother is the one that sends Nero after Dante in the first place, so both characters have equal footing there as well. Also, when Ryu and Dante take over the games, they literally both go back over the last few missions their respective counterparts did in reverse. And when I say this, I don't just mean similar scenery, it's exactly the same level designs and arenas for the boss fights. Because you're going through it in reverse, Ninja Gaiden might not look like it's the same levels to some people, but Devil May Cry makes use of a fixed camera a lot of the time that can't be moved, so it stands out like dog's balls when you go back through old maps. Both instances of this nearly doubled the lengths of their respective games. Now, the bosses that are repeated in both games. Here are the 3 bosses from Devil May Cry. A fire guy, a large frog or toad demon on an ice field, and a flying plant lady. Now let's compare them to the 3 from Ninja Gaiden. We have a kitsune lady that has fire lanterns around that explode when they hit you, a flying... I don't even know what this is meant to be, probably a wolf or a fox or something. Something that's not meant to fly, I can tell you that much like a plant is not meant to fly. And then a large shark with hands and a weird humanoid face in its mouth on a water arena. Now, this is the order that they're done with the first protagonists. And then this is the order that is done with the second protagonists throughout the game. The only difference between the 2 games here is that they literally swapped the flyer and the water ice arena one and called it a day. Even when fighting these creatures, they all had the same struggles. The fire ones, avoiding the fire and explosions was the main difficulty. The flyers, when they were in the air, there wasn't much you could do aside from rely on really weak ranged weapons and wait until they came down. The trick is just to keep dodging until you get a chance to whack them. The water ice animals, I shit you not, they keep disappearing and reappearing to chomp you. Seriously, these fight pretty much identical to one another. The weapons you get from these bosses are also interesting. Yakumo is the one that benefits from the weapons in Ninja Gaiden, and Dante benefits in Devil May Cry. So one makes the weapons important in the first half of the game, and the other makes them important in the second half of the game. So they were gracious enough to change that part of the homework, at least. For Ninja Gaiden, the first weapons you unlock are basically a lance that transforms into a drill, the second is a bow staff, essentially, that transforms into a hammer, and the third, well, we'll get to that in a second. In Devil May Cry, you unlock Gilgamesh, which makes you punch and kick hard, The second is a box named Pandora, which states it has 666 forms and is not a melee weapon, but takes the ranged weapon slot. And then there's Lucifer, which gives Dante some claw-looking things that basically throw out darts and explode over time. Now remember the box that I told you Yakima gets? So, it literally describes it as follows. This is literally the effect of Pandora, and its design, look at this. You see those extra arms that look real menacing on Yakima's back? Well, now look at Lucifer. They didn't even try to hide it with this. The physical design is the same as Lucifer, but the functionality is the same as Pandora. I don't understand why anybody thought that this was a good idea. Both games have their symbolism of passing the torch by presenting the younger protagonist with a sword. Literally, the type of sword is the only difference. Look at the Dark Dragon Blade. He holds this one like Ryu holds his katana, but that is not a katana, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. Devil May Cry literally is a katana. Ninja Gaiden is the game that a katana would make the most sense, but Devil May Cry is the one with it. The final battles in both games start with essentially a kaiju battle, which is insanely easy compared to the rest of the game, followed by a fight with a smaller human-sized enemy whose difficulty still doesn't match up to any of the previous fights in the game. In fact, putting both the kaiju and the regular man sections together, their difficulty doesn't even add up to a single other boss fight from the game. And lastly, both games, while they roll the credits, have you fighting enemies. Now, I'm going to be honest, I personally cannot recall seeing this in any other game that I have played, and I was sure that this was pretty much exclusive to Devil May Cry. For a game to copy so many of the story beats and then follow it up with this as well, I honestly just could not stop laughing. Don't get me wrong, I was running off coffee and adrenaline at this point, and, well, I mean, I still am, but I could not believe that they even did the same thing for the credits. Look, I really enjoyed Devil May Cry 4, despite the very polarizing reviews and opinions on it. I really enjoyed Ninja Gaiden 4 as well, but I'm so shocked that I'm not seeing more people talk about this. It feels like Team Ninja copied Capcom's homework and changed, well, not nearly enough to make it convincingly theirs. And it brings me to an overarching problem. The world of music, movies, and video games have a blaring issue. Most of what is being released now, it's all the same. It might just be me getting old, but music is usually the same four chords with predictable melody lines that can be sung over the last 13,000 released songs. And then when people mash them up, everyone acts surprised, saying, "Oh, it works so well." And then movies, the biggest releases that are finding their way to cinemas at the moment are either remakes, sequels, or a movie based on a pre-existing franchise. And in this particular game, this was far too close for it to be an accident. Ninja Gaiden 4 was reported to have been in development for 6 or 7 years, and honestly, I'd like to know what they were doing that whole time, because this is a massive copy and paste job. There's nothing new here, there's nothing groundbreaking, and I keep seeing companies giving the game 8 out of 10 and higher, and yet none of them are mentioning this. I understand that games take inspiration, but I cannot for the life of me say that this game just took inspiration. There is so much here that is just incredibly parallel, and I just don't know what to do with this information. And it's why I've had to put this video out so soon, because I genuinely want to know if people are realizing this same thing, because I'm hearing nobody talking about it. If you want a game that will give you a solid 10 hours of blood and gore and just hack and slash fun, this game will be great for you. You'll have a great time playing it, the combat flows nicely, the story is decent, and it's got a pretty decent degree of difficulty that you can change to either challenge yourself further or to make it much easier. But having realized all of these similarities, I can't give it the 7.5 that I wanted to give it. It's so incredibly unoriginal and blatantly ripped off, I couldn't realistically give it more than a 4. And again, 2 of those points because of the soundtrack. I don't know. Am I being too harsh on this? Let me know in the comments below. Have you played this game yet? Have you seen this game yet? Are you watching YouTubers or Twitch streamers play this game at the moment? What are their thoughts on it? I'll be interested to see how many people agree and disagree with me. Because honestly, this has done my head in. Anyway, that's all I have time for today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.